Hello, this is Anshu Sharma here. This is the fourth part of our series on spiritual awakening and Kundalini awakening. If you have not seen parts 1, 2, and 3, then please look at the attachments in the description box. The links are attached. So, we are going to discuss the final part, the final video on spiritual awakening and Kundalini awakening. This is about the process of liberation. A little bit recap on the first three videos. In the first video, we discussed the buried knowledge is in our DNA and that knowledge has to come out. It has to be once again brought to our conscious mind because from eons we have been separated from the source and we have forgotten that knowledge. There are keys to unlock that spiritual knowledge contained in our subconscious mind, in our DNA, and these keys to unlock the spiritual knowledge are activation, unification, expansion, and finally the liberation. In part 1, we discussed the process of activation. What we mean by activation is the DNA activation. DNA activation is a process of awakening our latent spiritual potential. It is the process of activation of the specific parts of the DNA that can lead to our higher spiritual awareness. So, through the process of DNA activation, we become more and more aware. Our psychic abilities come on the surface and we form a deeper connection with our higher self, the universe, and the divine consciousness. In the second video, we talked about unification. What is unification? Unification is a spiritual process whereby we merge or harmonize the different aspects of our existence, such as we merge and harmonize our body, mind, and soul into a state of oneness or unity. The process of unification involves the union with the divine. Unification is also involves our merging or creating a balance between inner and our outer self. Spiritual unification is also about bringing peace and coherence to different aspects of ourself, such as yoga means we unite, we form union about union between our body, mind, and spirit. In the third video on expansion, we talked about expansion, the spiritual expansion, which is a process of transcending from our personal limitations. And with this process, we deepen our awareness and we align ourselves with our higher states of consciousness. This process is associated with our awakening, our enlightenment, and we realize that our connection, that we are deeply connected to the universe, we are not separate. When we expand, our perception increases and we become more and more aware. We look at the same thing from a broader, higher perspective. We feel an increase in love and compassion, and our lower egoic identities also dissolve. And now, finally, in this video, we are going to talk about liberation. What is liberation? From what are we getting liberated from. Spiritual liberation is the ultimate freedom. Spiritual liberation is the state of complete freedom from our egoic illusions, our lower egos, and basically from our suffering and our attachment. When we identify ourselves from the lower states of consciousness, we come into our personality and we identify with our ego. Identification with the ego causes pain and suffering. We feel we are separate from others. We feel we are separate from the universe, from God, and we start forming false attachments. So, awakening involves that we start realizing our true nature. Our true nature is beyond the limitations of our body and mind. So, all various terms such as moksha, nirvana, enlightenment, or salvation, they point to this one truth, that is spiritual liberation. Though we get liberated from lower ego and illusions, we get liberated from identification with the ego, the false self that creates separation, and eventually we feel the lower emotions of pain and suffering and fear. We get liberated from these lower emotions and we realize that our true nature is beyond the mind, beyond the body, and beyond any identity. And then with this, we also get a lot of wisdom. We get liberated from the cycles of karma and rebirth. Our actions, the karma, they bind the soul to the cycles of rebirth. The mind patterns bind the soul to the cycles of rebirth. So we get liberated from the repeated cycles of birth and death. And we start realizing that we are eternal beings. With this, the liberation from fear and suffering comes. We get liberated and unaffected by external circumstances. And we start attaining true freedom of inner peace. Spiritual freedom is not about escaping life, but seeing through illusions. So, liberation is basically a shift in perception, and this shift in perception is brought about by continuous education, knowledge, and wisdom. And finally, we realize that ego is just an illusion. So, liberation and freedom from the prison of limitations. We do not feel that we are limited to this physical body only. We get liberated from conditions, judgments, and comparisons. We do not compare ourselves. We stop comparison altogether. We are on our individual inner journey, and that's where we start focusing. The lower emotions of fear, shame, and guilt finish. We get fully liberated. We feel unconditional love for ourselves and for others as well. So liberation and freedom actually liberates us from the prison of thoughts, where the thoughts almost finish and we come into the state of inner peace and witnessing without any judgment. We get the freedom from our belief systems, which our society and culture, nationalities have imposed on us. When we know the ultimate truth that we all are one, we get freedom from the operation of mind to the state of silence. And then we get liberated from being a slave, from slavery or dominance by others, to being self sovereign. We cease to see things with the perception of polarity and duality, and we start seeing things in oneness. Basically, we start get liberation, and we ascend higher from one density of universe to the next, from personality to the soul level. And then from the soul, we ascend higher to oversoul. So this continuous ascension leads us to more and more liberation and more freedom. It is not a one day job. It takes decades and sometimes centuries of our various lifetimes. So, how to achieve this spiritual liberation? We achieve it through meditation and awareness, when by and by we start recognizing the self which is beyond the thoughts. Then we let go of our attachments, which reduce identification with external things. We start coming more and more into the state of love and compassion, when the ego transcends through service and love, where we love others as much as we love ourselves. The process also involves a self inquiry, when we continuously ask ourselves, who am I? And then gradually, by and by, we reach to our true nature. We surrender and we start trusting the divine. We start flowing with life rather than resisting it. So, these are all the processes which are involved in spiritual liberation, which is the final outcome of all these processes. In these videos, in these 4 videos, we have discussed the various keys to unlock this knowledge, from activation to unification to expansion and finally to liberation. I hope you enjoyed this series. With this, I take the leave, and please, if you like it, like this video, press the like button and subscribe, and please share with others. I see you again with my future videos. Bye for now. Thanks for listening. Take care.